Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2021 Ford Explorer, we're going to be showing you how to install the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver. But before we do that, why don't we check this out and make sure it's the right hitch for you. When it comes to the Ford Explorer, these are actually pretty capable SUVs, and having a hitch on the back of it just makes sense. You know, this one looks right at home. By having this back here, it's going to really open up your opportunities. You know, whether you're trying to use a bike rack or a cargo carrier, or even pull a trailer around, this is going to allow you to do that and get the job done. And not to mention too, this one, I think it looks really good. For the most part, it's going to be completely hidden. Really, the only thing you're going to be able to see is a receiver tube opening, and so, at least in my opinion, it almost looks like it's a factory option. I do want to address one of the big questions that we get asked quite a bit, and that is, are you still going to be able to use the hands-free liftgate assist feature? And the answer is yes, it's still going to work. Let's go ahead and unlock our vehicle here. And all you're going to have to do is kick your foot to either side of the hitch. Might take you a few tries to, find that sweet spot, but once you do, you'll get used to it and everything will work properly. With this being a Class 3 hitch, it is going to have that 2-inch by 2-inch opening. That is a super common size, and a lot of different things are going to work with it. Into the receiver tube, it's going to have a reinforced collar for a little bit of extra support, and it's going to use that standard 5/8 pin and clip. Keep in mind though, pin and clip don't come with the hitch. If you need one, not really a big deal. The safety chain openings are a loop style, and they're going to be big enough to allow us to use just about any size hook that our trailer might have on it. Now I'm going to give you a couple of measurements, and you can use these to help figure out which hitch mounted accessories will work best. From the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, that's going to be about 15 inches. So if you do plan on pulling a trailer around, chances are pretty good. You can use a ball mount that has a straight shank. From the center of the hitch pin hole to the edge of the rear bumper, that's going to be about 3.5 inches. And you can use that measurement to help figure out that if any folding type accessories you might have can be stored in that upright position without contacting the back of your Explorer. Just to compare this hitch to some of the other ones available, they're all going to be very, very similar in terms of how they look and what you're going to be able to do with them and everything else like that. Probably the main difference is just going to be the finish. So this one is a gloss black. I believe there's a more of a matte black type one, which would probably look really good as well. And then semi-gloss. So you got a few different choices to pick from there in terms of what style you like and everything else. But as far as getting the hitch installed goes, it's not too bad. If you do have that kick sensor, there's a couple more steps you're going to have to do. Not a huge deal. We have that sensor on our car today, so you'll be able to kind of follow along, and hopefully what we do here can help you out and make your experience a little bit better getting the hitch on. But with that said, why don't we go ahead and do that together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be underneath the back of our Explorer. And if you happen to have an underbody panel that runs along through here, you're going to need to remove it. In our case, we don't have that, so obviously we're not going to worry about it. But if you do, refer to your instructions. It'll tell you what fasteners to take out. But moving on, now we need to lower our exhaust down some to give us some room to work. Before we do that though, what I like to do is take a strap and just run it from side to side. That way we can kind of control how fast and how far we let the exhaust come down. To let the exhaust come down on each one of our mufflers, so right behind the tailpipe, up along the frame, if you look, we have our rubber hanger there. And it's kind of tricky to see, but at the top of it, you're gonna have a 10mm head bolt bolting that hanger into the frame. And so you'll obviously get a 10mm socket and get it removed. So once we get this one out, we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. And from this point on, anything we do to one side of our vehicle, we're gonna do to the other side because it'll be set up the same way. Now if you follow our exhaust pipes towards the front, we're going to have another hanger. This one though is just a rubber one. You can spray this down with soapy water, some type of lubricant. Then take a pry bar and pry the end of it off. So I already did the other side. And now what we can do is loosen up the strap and let the exhaust come down a little ways. What we're able to do now is get our heat shield removed. So there's going to be several 10 millimeter fasteners kind of just throughout. So we'll get those removed first. And then we're gonna have two 7 millimeter head fasteners. One of them is gonna be right here. And then the other one is going to be kind of buried in the corner there. So there's the back of the screw. So the head of the fastener is just on this inside here. And with all of those out, you should be able to grab our heat shield, kind of pry down on it until it pops out of place and get it removed. If you look at the bottom of your frame, we're going to have this big bolt right here, and we're going to pull that out using a 21 millimeter socket. This next step is really only going to apply to you if you have the liftgate assist, the kick sensor under here to where you kick under and your tailgate opens, which we have. The sensor is right up in here, and eventually we're going to be doing some work right here, and so we need to kind of get it removed so we don't damage it for the time being. So these are rivets that are holding it in, and to get these out, you're going to take a drill bit, a little bit bigger than the size of the center of the rivet, and just drill these out. I've got that one out. I'll just do the same thing for the 3 remaining rivets. If you have a kick sensor, if you look on this panel, we're gonna have this wire, that's the actual sensor. And we're gonna have to cut this stuff eventually, so we don't cut through this. You just wanna pull it out of there. And then once we get it trimmed and everything, we can get it back into its position. So we can trim this now. There's a diagram in your instructions. I give you the measurements and whatnot. And so I put some tape here, drew it out. And with this being pretty thin plastic, I'm gonna use a Dremel tool, but you can use a pair of 10 snips or whatever you got too. I'll cut this out, and then that panel behind it, we'll kind of use this as a guide to cut out that opening as well. With this piece cut out to size, I then just came back with a marker and traced it on the panel above it. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Come back with my tool and cut that material out. This is what it's gonna look like once it's cut out. And if you have any rough edges or anything like that, you can always come back with a utility knife or sandpaper, whatever, and clean those edges up. Now we can start to get our hardware in place. And so you're gonna take the coiled end of your fish wire, put it through that hole in the frame. And we're trying to get it to drop out of the larger hole there. I got kind of lucky with that one. A lot of times it just doesn't fall out. You'll have to kind of reach up there and help guide it. But what you're gonna do is take a spacer block, put that over the coiled end, and then a carriage bolt. That's just going to thread onto the fish wire. And then you can feed the hardware in the frame one at a time until it drops down. And then for this hole, you're going to do something a little different. You're just going to take the coiled end of the wire, put on a spacer block, thread on your carriage bolt, and this is going to be reverse fish wired. So just put the bolt up through there, followed by the block, and drop it down. Now with the next set of hands, we can take our hitch and get it into position. So you want to put the pull wires through the appropriate holes in the hitch. And we're just going to kind of work it up and over the exhaust. So once of them are through, you can get this raised up. Get our bolts through, and then this attachment point here, if you remember, we removed that big bolt from that. We're going to replace it with the new bolt and flat washer that comes with the hitch. So you want to get at least one of these started hand tight on each side. That way the hitch will support itself while we work on the rest of them. As far as our other hardware is concerned, you can take off the pull wires. And then you're going to take a flange nut and get those started. It's something you can do if you're struggling like me, if it's catching or the bolt wants to push up. You can take a screwdriver and apply some side pressure to it. It'll hold that steady and make it a little easier to get things going here. But once all the hardware is in place and hand tight, you can snug it down. For the big bolt, I'm going to use a 15/16 size socket. And for the smaller flange nuts, you can use a 3/4. Now we need to make sure to come back with a torque wrench and tighten down all the hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. If you don't have one of these torque wrenches, you can get one here at eTrailer, or usually you can rent them for free at your local auto parts store. If you have the kick sensor wire, you can simply just pop that back in, and so it just snaps in. You can see that piece that we cut, it just goes right across the front side of our hitch here. Now we can do is trim up our heat shield. There's a diagram of the instructions you can follow. I kind of just held this up though, and it looks like it's only contacting one spot. Are going to interfere with it getting this back up in place. So I drew out a square here, and I'm going to cut it out. That way we can get it reinstalled. So I went ahead, resecured our heat shields. This is how it turned out. So you can see a little better idea of why we cut the square out, so it would clear the new bolt in there. But once those are done, if you had to drill those rivets out, we need to replace them. So they actually give you some new ones. These are plastic rivets. And so you're gonna need a rivet gun to hook these. We sell, or eTrailer offers plastic rivet guns similar to this. Might be able to get them from your auto parts store too, be able to rent them. But with these, I mean, you're just gonna line the rivet up. I like to put a little bit of pressure on it. And just like that, everything's connected again. So I went ahead, got our exhaust back up into place, opposite way, you know, just put the hangers, rubber hangers back on. You can just push them on my hand and then put them bolts back in, and really all there is to it. But that done, we'll go ahead and remove our strap. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Curt Trailer Hitch Receiver on our 2021 Ford Explorer.